I found someone who was a nomad and into crypto just like me. And so we went on a date, and eventually, pretty early on in the night, I ended up getting drugged, and I was robbed for all of the crypto that I had.
Welcome to the Effortlessly Abundant Life podcast. I'm Natalia, a certified hypnotherapist and a mindset shifter. Not too long ago, I was a broke, burned out, multi-passionate, single woman to now making six figures effortlessly, marrying the love of my life and attracting what I want by using my unique bridge method. I'm here to help you achieve the results you want in any area of your life by owning your true unique self with less doing, less stress, and definitely less effort. Now let's jump to today's episode in 3, 2, 1. Hello, my gorgeous, gorgeous souls, and welcome to another episode of Effortlessly Abundant Life. I have such a treat for you guys. I have this beautiful soul. His name is Schabelman, and he is, I don't even know how to describe. It's like one of those things when you have like this multifaceted, amazing being, like how you can put a title on and how you can put it in a box. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and welcome you to the Effortlessly Abundant Life show.
Well, thank you for having me. I will say I don't like putting myself in a box either, but I think it is helpful to introduce people to me in some sort of defined way. But I think as we'll learn, it's hard to put me or really anyone in a box. But essentially, I'm Andres Schabelman. I was one of the first 30 Airbnb employees. And since then, I've gone down, after my career in tech, I've gone down many different paths in an attempt to come back to my heart and express creatively. And that path includes writing a book that's coming out in February called Captains Wanted. It also includes some comedic characters online and a travel show that I have all on my social media. So yeah, that's what I'm up to right now. And I think like one of the most important things to know about me is I grew up in New Orleans. My parents are from Argentina, and I do my very, very best to express authentically from my heart at every single moment as possible.
Oh, that's I mean, I don't know where to go first, but let me start with this moment where you work for Airbnb and that desire to really start expressing yourself creatively. What happened there?
I think what's interesting is I arrived at Airbnb after trying to be a travel show host on TV in Los Angeles
Mhm.
and failing miserably, not believing in myself. And then I was like, hey, I need to get back on a more traditional path. And eventually, this woman from my time trying to be a host on TV, from my time following my heart, she reaches out to me and is like, "Hey, I'm hanging out with all these this new company called Airbnb with these young, cool people." And so I start hanging out with her and her friends, and that's how I end up getting my job at Airbnb. And so I guess I tell that story because I didn't arrive at Airbnb trying to be at the next hottest company. I arrived at Airbnb by actually following my heart and just wanting to surround myself with good people. And then the chips fell where they fell, and I ended up having a decent amount of success there, which then led me to be able to return to my creative expression where I'm back at now.
So what happened there? Where you felt with Airbnb? Okay, I'm making money. I'm loving this kind of like new endeavor and be part of this. They literally revolutionized the whole traveling concept. And what does that mean? And which amazingly kind of tied into what you did in LA and that
Yeah.
protocol failing show. I feel like that's everything you needed in order to bring all these skills you learned there into Airbnb. But what happened with
Mm.
that moment where you said, okay, I need more. I want to go deeper. I want to go more authentic. I want to go.
Yeah. So many of us in the early days of Airbnb were really committed to this idea of bringing people together and using technology to actually lead to human connection. And so many of us that were there in the early stages were working there really where from a place where it didn't feel like work. We were just living our lives and expressing who we were through a company. And a lot of the values that we stood for were really deeply and intimately connected to who we were. And I speak personally there too. I worked a lot with casual hosts, not the professionals, who were really just opening up their homes. And yes, they wanted to make money, but they also wanted to share their lives with people that were coming in from out of town. And that really resonated with me. Over time, it became very clear that the company was a company and it cared more about, making money and moving towards an IPO. And in that process, it pretty quickly abandoned what felt like an abandonment to me, the values of connection and the casual host. So here I was bought in to this emotional connection to this mission only to kind of be a little bit heartbroken when I realized that at the end of the day, that was just a stepping stone for something else in a larger process to then go public, which is fine. But it hurt actually. It was painful because it was like a slap in the face when I realized, oh, I'm I've actually really given parts of myself for something or someone or some people where that my values weren't actually in the end aligned and I thought they were. And
Mhm.
so what I realized there is like, well, I want to be doing things that are value aligned all the time. I want to be doing things where the expression of my heart is not only valued by others, but it's actually something that is sustainable and that I can do on a consistent basis and where I don't have to pretend that I'm needing to do anything for anyone else. And so I think money is a complicated thing because as I was realizing that was also the time that the equity that I had in the business was starting to have more and more value.
Mm.
But at some point, I just realized, hey, like I never got into it for the money. I am not going to stay here if I'm not like living the life that I want to be leading. And so it was very clear that it was time to move on. And eventually, it wasn't so like quick because then I worked in other tech companies for a little bit. But eventually, I did come to the conclusion that, hey, like a life worth living is one where I am expressing from my heart and I'm fully invested in in my day to day, and I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not.
Oh. So that's so interesting. So I'm hosting a masterclass. I don't know if it's going to be aired after or before. It's called Escape the Matrix, the Formula. And it's exactly what you're talking about.
Mm.
This awakening and of this understanding is like, I no longer want to sell my soul to the status, to the job, to the money, to the stability, quote unquote, and kill my soul in the process of it. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think that is the most courageous thing you can do in this time because people value so much, especially when living in this big city. Let's be honest, we're not living somewhere, in the woods and, outside of civilization. Like we still need to pay our rent. We still have needs, physical needs that needs to be met. And how did you find the courage to do it? Like, did you had a plan, like an escape type of, how
Mm.
you actually physically did that?
Yeah. Um, well, maybe I didn't know it at the time, but I kind of did. There was a period in my life where it was becoming clear that I was living a life that was not aligned with who I felt I really was. And
Mhm.
that happened in my relationships, that was happening in my job. And I realized that I was continuing a pattern of living my life towards a value system that was passed on to me in many ways by my parents and by the society that I grew up with and the culture that I grew up with, which I understand it came in many ways from a survival mode mentality. So I have empathy for it. But more and more, I realized that I was living for someone else or towards something else. And I wasn't really moving towards the person I felt that that I meant to become, and I call it now my higher self. And
Yes.
I had a relationship with my higher self and I knew that I wasn't there. And my actions were really in what I would call my lower self. And I was just like, this is not sustainable if I am to live the life that is an expression of who I really am. And so I really started to evaluate, like, well, what was it that I kept? How could I keep giving away all of my power to these value systems that weren't necessarily aligned for me? And it took hitting rock bottom multiple times to then
Talk to
realize,
me. Give me like zoom into one of those. Because I'm
well,
sure like people, like here's the thing. We don't
yeah,
really hear these stories. We only hear the good stuff, right? We hear
yeah,
the winning in the end. We see the hero getting the awards, but these are the moments where we want to feel seen and heard and know that we're not the only one. And that's why I really kind of want to kind of go into
yeah,
that deeply.
yeah, sure. Well, it didn't even happen that long ago, and that's why I say these processes aren't linear.
Yeah.
So, like, I speak to you from a place where I am still
In the
on.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We all.
Okay. But in January of 2022, I was in Colombia and I had visited my best friend Juan, who's taking care of his mom who has Alzheimer's, and it's a really hard situation. And I was numbing my feelings. And in an attempt to numb the sadness that I had, I went and I got on the dating apps and I pulled it up and I found someone who was a nomad and into crypto just like me. And so we went on a date and eventually, pretty early on in the night, I ended up getting drugged and I was robbed for all of the crypto that I had. They gave me this drug called scopolamine or burundanga that's what it's called on the
Wow.
street. And normally they don't kill you, but because the amount of time that I was completely out, I actually did almost die because they almost overdosed me. And this was a period in my life where I was over identifying with the money that I had. Again, once again, I was over identifying with the money that I had, and I was numbing feelings that were coming up, and I was looking compulsively to external validators outside of me in order to avoid the feeling of vulnerability or of pain that I was feeling in the moment.
Wow.
So, my life has dramatically shifted from that moment. And I'm so thankful that whatever gifts my parents gave me, one of them was to view these moments as opportunities to grow and not be broken by them
I was about
because
to say it was so probably easy to go in that route of like,
could have.
holy shit.
I've never once thought about the enormous amounts of money that were stolen, and I've never once harbored any negative feelings towards the girl or the system
That was behind her.
that
Yeah.
was behind her because I knew that this was about me and it was about um, re engaging with myself and with my emotions and with my mechanisms for numbing and to kind of like work with the body as an indicator of what I was really experiencing and kind of like go deeper. So I went home to New Orleans. I did yoga for a month. I cried in my mom's arms at 38 at the time.
Yeah. Such a
And
humbling time, right?
yeah, humbling, truly humbling. And it allowed me to then like view all of these things that I was looking at, whether it be external validators of money or of women or whatever it was at the time, as ways for me to then like engage in, okay, where am I giving away my power here? How am I not connecting with what truly makes me alive inside of me? And how can I return to me as the instrument of spirit and of joy and of expression? And so really it was since January 2022 that I launched my travel show, that I finished writing the book, that I started these comedic characters online and truly delving into my expression. So
Incredible.
um yeah, that was rock bottom.
Yeah. I would say it was a rock bottom, but let me tell
Yeah.
you what separates you from so many people. And it's incredible to see how many people don't see in that way. That everything is a reflection of you, right? When you perceive the world, everything, it's not something that lives outside of you, right? This person, the situation, these circumstances, they're all a reflection of your belief, of your thoughts, of your feelings. And everything is happening for you so you can grow, as you said, into your higher self, where you need more healing, where you need more clarification, like all these defining moments, what we call negative moments, are actually are biggest blessing because that is the wake up call. That is like, hello. And that is how we wake up and actually go deeper. Without that, we would just kind of like cruise, right?
Totally.
And what sets you apart from so many people is the fact that you took total responsibility of your life. And that
Mm.
is what I'm teaching in the masterclass. And it's exactly how you can escape the matrix. You can escape what do you feel is holding you back. It's only if you're going to take the responsibility. Because if you giving your power away to the government, to societies, to crypto, to money, to your job, to your partner, to your family, to whatever you want to give power to, that is where you don't understand that you are the essence of everything that you want to experience in your world. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you are aware of that.
Yeah. 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 And I think it's important to acknowledge the places um, where we find pleasure in the negative
Oh,
emotion,
yes.
because I think not only are we responsible for them, but I think making contact with the parts that actually are kind of mixed in with pleasure makes it somewhat easier to understand that we're getting some benefit in those places.
Yes.
But that if we could take that energy and liberate it,
Yeah.
and we can transmute it to create more, you know, just powerful things in the world that are aligned with our heart. Because I think that's one thing that we associate negative moments with negativity, but I really think that it's important to recognize that there are benefits that we get in those moments. There are things that we really desire, want, and get pleasure from. And I've been really doing a lot of that work of making contact with that pleasure, that negative pleasure, or however you want to call it. I don't think it's that negative.
Yeah.
I think it's
You
quite,
actually neutralizing it by
yeah.
seeing the good in it because
Mm,
nothing is good or bad. Everything is what is. It's one
right.
interpretation and perspective of whatever happened. And that is where the suffering happens for so many humans is that
Yeah.
oh, it's bad, I should have been done better. It's like it's
Right.
amazing to me, like there's a study where people said how much they make and how they feel towards it, like they feel
Hmm.
they're abundant or they're not abundant. What do you think? The person that was making $45,000 a year was feeling more abundant than actual person that was making 45, excuse me, $450,000 a
Yeah.
year. All right,
Right.
the amount had nothing to do with the
Totally.
feeling of abundance.
Mm,
The like whatever happened to you, you could easily, as you said, go into the victim mode, go into this whole spiral where you went down versus taking full responsibility and actually creating something out of it, right? Like everything is a freaking choice.
totally. I don't know. I'm just going to go with kind of the analogy you just
Yeah.
gave, which is a little bit of a sidestep, but I do have a lot of compassion for men in this world who, especially who come from this value system that capitalism and the corporate world has established, which, for example, would value the making more and more and more and more and more, like getting to the place where you make 450K, for example. But along the way, we've been taught that we shouldn't value our emotions, right? Because having emotions is crazy. You're going to be seen as not logical. The business world's not going to value it. And so, in the absence of making contact with our emotions, a lot of us men, but maybe everyone who's involved
No, I agree,
in in
especially
the
men.
in the
Hmm.
capitalist kind of corporate ladder world, that matrix, we often will escape feeling our feelings and just look to make more money because that's the value that's been given to us by the matrix of that corporate world. And so what's interesting is when I ask men, for example, who are making lots of money and want to make more, I'm like, well, what do you want to do with that money?
Right. How much you really need
Yeah.
to
And
live
they go
abundantly.
blank because the connection that they have to what their wants and needs and desires are has been kind of been usurped by that system. I think in many ways what I was going through at the time that the whole Columbia experience happened
Yeah.
was in many ways I was putting down what my true wants, needs, desires, and emotions were, and just I over identifying with this value system that was given to me.
Yeah.
And what would be opened if I could make contact with what I really wanted and what my emotions really were.
Oh, let's talk about it. I mean, men,
Yeah.
specifically men, because there is this thing about masculine men, and they need to be the leaders, and they need to be the providers, and they need to be all these things that expected, right? Um, and I feel this need for a man to just feel, and there's no room for that. It's just like go, 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 go. Um, how as a man, right? And I
Mhm.
think it's one thing when it comes from a woman, but I think it's completely different from a person that is actually a man and
Yeah.
been through it. How do you allow yourself to express your emotions without feeling weak, without, without telling your story like that's not like I'm a weak person for doing
Mm,
that. How you allow yourself to
mm,
do that?
mhm. Well, now I've gotten to the point where a lot of the emotions I feel that are associated with fear or vulnerability, um, I really associate in many ways with my younger self. And I think parts therapy has really helped because I have a way of seeing the part of me that is scared, and I can imagine him as the little boy. And I say to him what I always would have wanted to be told to him, which
I love
is,
that.
hi, I totally recognize what you're feeling, and you should feel those feelings. Like, those are your feelings, and you are justified in having them. And I'm here if you want me to be here. I'm here for you whenever you want me. I'm not trying to move you away from your experience. I'm not trying to tell you that what you're feeling isn't real, because it is. I love you and I'm here for you. And just with this more compassionate way of communicating with myself, um, I've acknowledged that my feelings of that are weak or that are vulnerable, they they really belong here. They're not they're not they're not like, it's not that they're the feeling of weakness, that they may be weak, has there's another part of me that does in fact feel that. But when I've moved myself away from what my actual feelings were in order to play into the voice that is saying that that's weak or that's not strong or that's not manly, it's actually left it's left me kind of abandoned. It's left me not actually making contact with all the parts of myself. So, for example, a situation like what happened in Colombia might happen, where I'm actually feeling vulnerable, sad, weak, fearful, because I just had this whole experience with my best friend and her mom, who has had Alzheimer's for the last 10 years, and I'm really sad. I could have I call that voice the dictator, come in and say, hey, you should feel better. Come on, it's not
Like,
your
man up. Come
problem.
on.
Yeah, whatever it is. But
Right.
in, but and that's maybe what I did in that moment, which left me just numbing what I was actually feeling. So now I move slower with those feelings, and I I treat them in the way that I wish I had been they had been treated as the kid, as the boy. I think one thing, and this might be a little controversial,
Please. We love controversial.
I do notice a little bit that in the space of male female dynamics, for as much as women still talk about wanting their man or the men to be more vulnerable, I still feel this energy where that's coming in my direction, where actually I don't think it's actually being valued. I sense this energy that's coming towards me, being pulling me to man up and be more masculine and to be more of the protector, but the protector who he himself doesn't have any vulnerabilities, because you as the woman are the only one who's allowed to have the vulnerability or something like that. I don't know if I fully understand it.
I totally agree. I think there's this need for women right now more than ever is to feel guided. right? As
Hmm.
much as we pretend we are these alpha women and we're boss babes and we can do it all, like, no, we can't. And no, we don't want to anymore because we burned out and we're tired. And there's this beautiful dynamic that is just the nature. And that's what we need to follow is nature and see what's going on in nature. And
Mm,
that's how it should be. And there's this kind of completion where a man and woman really follow their true femininity and masculinity. But as you
mm,
said, it's about owning your entire self and not just the perception of what you think you need to be. I think, what you kind of said about specifically encounter a specific moment where they felt intimidated seeing this is because they didn't meet their own
right.
self. And that's the reflection here is like, I don't know, I can't handle it. So I don't know how to hold you in this moment. But I feel if both men and women is going to take full responsibility of their life and their
Totally.
emotions, and they say, I'm done numbing, I'm done hiding, I'm done as kind of like, half-assing, and I'm actually going to feel it. Like,
Yeah.
feel the damn feeling. All right.
Yeah.
And that's what I said to my husband literally a couple of days ago. We had a moment, and I said to him, I think it's the first time you ever allow yourself to feel. That's why it feels so heavy, and that's
Mm,
okay. And I think just by me saying that to him, it's kind of like the permission slip and that
mm.
feeling literally just washed off you. And people think
Int-
like, oh my God, is this big dark hole that I don't know if I'm gonna get out of it. It's like, no, it's okay. It's gonna feel sucky, maybe for an hour or two, maybe 2 days, but it's gonna always go away. But you're never gonna be able to override it or kind of like find a shortcut.
right. Yeah. And as a, if I look at my own experience as a blueprint for external relationships, the previous way that I was doing things where I had that dictator inside of me, right? Who was who was very decisive. It
Yeah.
he actually, I think she's a she in me actually, but anyway, um, this director of a business, or this dictator, she's quite strong-willed. She will move me from point A to point B, and maybe the external perception of that is strength in some way.
Yeah.
But I know now, over time, that that's actually an expression of fear, because that dictator is really afraid of listening to the parts of me that are asking for help or asking for to be listened to, that are more vulnerable. And when I've brought the dictator and the other parts into alignment, the decisions that we make together, acknowledging the fear that's inside, are far more powerful and stronger. So I think there is a world where eventually we recognize the strength in the integration of the vulnerability along with the directionality or the dictator that's also inside of us.
Exactly.
And I really look forward to that, because I think when we allow for those narratives to come up and that integration of the softness with the hardness, I really think that we're going to be, not just in terms of men and women, but we're going to be moving forward in our world less vulnerable to these ways in which the matrix, in various different expressions of it, control us. Because now we're not operating from a place of fear. We're not operating from not fear, but we're operating from fullness.
We're not avoiding because everything in the Matrix is all about like, selling this idea of, oh, when you're gonna have this outfit, you're gonna feel very sexy, or when you're gonna have this drink, you're gonna feel happy. It's like this selling us the outcome versus honestly tapping into yourself first. Like
Mm,
all these feelings that the Matrix selling us, like the job, the all the things that they tell us that we need to have in a certain time and a certain, age.
yeah.
It's like, wait. No, I don't need the drink to feel happy. I can just be happy right now.
Mm,
Or, you know what I'm saying? And that is where they actually control us because we don't understand that we're in control of our feelings. And, but again, you have to feel it in order to align yourself with what it is that you do want. So let's go
mm,
back. Let's
Okay.
go because we can go like really cool, really cool
Bring me back,
conversation.
Natalia.
But I want to go into manifesting because
Okay.
part of creating this new world and part of creating your new matrix, right? The new world that you want to live in, it's part of what we call manifesting. So, how did you do it for yourself when you kind of decided, okay, this high tech and this endeavor is no longer for me, and I know what I do want? How did you start to kind of manifesting, designing, and creating what it is that you want and actually bring into the 3D, if you want to say?
Yeah, I think my manifestation's a little bit, I mean, maybe it's different for everyone, but um, I'm I have gone and down the Joe Dispenza paths. I'm an advanced master student in his world. So I am familiar with the process of visualization and really embodiment of the visualization in some format. However, that's not really the way that I have manifested in the past so much. For me, I'm so guided by the moment and what's alive inside of me
Mm,
that that I feel that resonance with something. And since I'm not tied to an outcome, a long-term outcome, I have the ability to allow myself to flow with the things that are alive. And I have enough trust to know that when I do things from that place, I leave myself open to being transformed. The end result of that transformation is an end point that I could never have imagined from the point that I had started following what was alive within that set of decisions that I made. So I can't say that I'm really good at a manifestation from the perspective of the imagination into the future, because I think that's how we often think about manifestation.
right, right.
For me, I manifest from the moment.
I love this so much. And I'll tell you why I love this so much. Because the matrix can hijack even in the spiritual world, what we call the manifestation world, where we
Mm,
want to control the how, right? We want to control the vision, what we think we want. But we a lot of us don't even know what we fucking want. Sorry for my language, right? We think we want the $1 million. We think we want a car. We think we want a family. We think we want all these like stuff because that's what's like we see or we think we need to know or want. But and that is where we're putting ourselves in this not really like that's where we're losing the magic. And the magic, as you said, is to follow what's alive for you today and follow that breadcrumb. And it's more to that. I'll add to that. It's the intuition. So for you, you
mm,
don't call it intuition, but that's your
mm.
intuition.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
literally following your intuition because all we have is the now. Like we're not living
yeah,
in the future. Because if you're
totally.
overthinking and obsessing about what's the future, you're not living the now. You are obsessing about this vision that maybe source has even a bigger vision for you. And you're not allowing this because you're so married to this vision that obviously it's not what we really want because it's something you think you need to want because that's what you see out there. And it's like you're missing the fucking point.
Yeah, I think what you're pointing to reminds me a lot of um yeah, something that I think you would classify as part of the matrix. Like we're constantly told, which is so antithetical to what I think manifestation is also being taught to us as. But basically,
Yeah.
we are taught that we as humans need to move matter from point A to point B by physically moving ourselves in that direction. But manifestation talks about this idea of like, no, you can get from point A to point D by thinking of D and embodying D so much that you basically move the molecules around you to create point D. Well, what's I think more powerful, and not more powerful, but it's more aligned with the idea of like the magic behind manifestation is the idea that from the perspective of point A, you actually don't know what is even possible. That point D that you got to from your perspective of imagining a future is actually, I think, quite limited
Yeah.
because, yeah. And so what is alive inside of me feels like something that is connected to spirit. It does feel connected to intuition to a certain extent because things that happen along the way from that perspective feel synchronistic. They feel they feel magical. And yeah, like there's so many coincidences and
And isn't it
serendipity.
more cool than
It's
like,
so cool.
okay, I manifested it or I envisioned it
Right.
and it's exactly happened? It's like,
Right.
boring.
Right.
You didn't come to this life to like,
Yeah, we're still in the place of control.
exactly.
So, um, yeah, I feel like another word that's charged in our communities is surrender, because surrender is like also
My
equally as
client's
force
favorite
filled.
word.
But but um but to truly surrender, meaning,
So what does that mean for you to truly surrender?
well, I
Because
don't
it's
like,
not a physical thing. It's a really what?
um it's a state of receptivity, I guess. It's kind
So
of
what
what
does
I'm
that
saying.
feel like for you? Like if you would put it into
Yeah.
like these, like let's say I've been working so hard on this project and nothing is moving. I'm not making the
Hmm.
money. I'm feeling this. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
where is this like, you know what?
Yeah, I'm trusting in that, in these moments, that with if I'm able to get myself to a place of more ease and grace with in the moment, that what is right for me, what is alive for me will start to show up. And I trust that now because it's happened so often
I
that,
was
like,
about to say a lot of
yeah,
people don't really played with that enough to have this evidence because our brain still needs evidence, right?
yeah,
And I think once you start looking for these evidence of like, you know what, things kind of worked out. I'm like not in a dumpster somewhere. Like I'm okay.
yeah,
So I'll be okay moving, like seeing these
yeah,
moments where actually things worked out and they always are. It's like always there. You just have to what?
yeah.
See them and
And
validate them.
totally. And I think one thing that you reminded me of is that there are common traps that get me out of it, that get me out of the state of flow or surrender, which is one common one is the decisions that are in front of me feel permanent. And because they feel permanent, I therefore need to be more cautious of the decisions that I'm going to make. And I have to remind myself, hey, it's not permanent.
Exactly.
I
What is
can get
permanent?
right.
Everything is always changing.
Exactly. Or, um, oh, if I make this decision, it's going to cost me this money or this comfort or this whatever. And so I'm aware of the things that come in between me and being able to be in a state of ease and grace. So I talk to myself, like I talk to that younger part of me, and I say, hey, I know that in the past there have been moments where it's been hard for you to get out of a situation because, for a lot of reasons. Maybe you felt like you were going to hurt someone and you couldn't get out of that situation. But we have the tools now to be able to make a decision that feels permanent right now, actually quite temporary. We have the ability to shift. So if it's okay with you, what if, for the sake of testing and trying something new, we give this possibility, we give this option the possibility of entering our psyche from the place of ease and grace and see how it lands. And even if we take the step forward and move in that direction, it doesn't have to be permanent if we don't want it to be. So I talk to myself in because I also have those voices that come up.
Yes. And I
And
love that you're being so vulnerable. And thank you so much for giving us kind of like a snippet
yeah,
of what does that look like? Because
yeah,
a lot of people are like, as you said, they just have the dictator or they have the weak sound and they don't have this like higher self
yeah. And,
conversation and kind of leading yourself gently into.
yeah. And I want to note that when I talk to that part of me, I really do acknowledge the experiences that we've had from the place of being hurt in the past. I acknowledge that because I know where that fear comes from. But I
Exactly.
also want to posit or introduce the idea that we're in a different place now.
Yeah.
And we can together with your fear involved in the process of informing our step forward, we together, all of us, all the parts of me, can move forward in the direction of something with more ease and grace. And it's from that place that I find that like the path appears before me.
Oh, so freaking good. I love this so much. Talk to us about storytelling as a way to manifest. Because I know that's something you do. Is that
Mm,
how you use that to bring something that is alive? Because I feel storytelling is such a component that is so human and
mm,
it so brings up all the different parts of our brain and our soul and connecting all of them together. And I think that's such a cool way to manifest. So tell us a little bit more about that.
mm. Yeah, it's it's interesting because I have a book that comes out February 11th. It's called Captains Wanted. It is written in the second person, meaning you go down this path, you follow this symbol, and it doesn't have like um this uh like what's it called, the author is not really present in the story. It's you are the owner of your own story.
Interesting.
So I'm writing a book that's a story, but it's meant to not take people out of their own power.
I love that. It's not like
Yeah.
this
Yeah. It's kind of
parallel reality where you bring them in. No, you're like, bring the book to them, bring the reality to them. I love that.
because I don't want to be another source in the world where people give away their own power to something.
Or escape from something.
Correct.
I love that.
But I also acknowledge, in line with your question, that storytelling has a way of um, allowing you to narrate the process of manifestation to yourself. Meaning, as I go through an experience in my life that is alive inside of me, I'm re- I'm I'm defining the experience to myself as, "Hi, in this moment, I am feeling alive." And so we all become storytellers as we write the story of following what's alive inside of us. And it kind of can keep us on the path of of getting to the unknown destination, because we make it aware to ourselves that what is happening is something that is part of a larger story.
Yes.
Because if you're constantly like me, making decisions in the moment, one can lose oneself in in the moment. There are limitations to living in the present at all times.
Right.
There has to be a thread, but that thread um isn't dictating the directionality. It's just reframing what you're doing as part of something larger.
Hmm.
And that in and of itself allows me to both stay connected to the moment and connected to something that is developing. So,
I think our listeners are gonna go back and listen to this again and again, and then they're gonna get it. Because it's deep. It's deep. That is so good. All
uh-huh.
right. So tell us your awakening story. Like did you realize like holy shit, this is all this is all programming. This is not this is not how life should actually be like. Did you have this
Mm,
moment of like, huh?
hmm. I think it wasn't one necessarily specific moment, but I, from an early age, the value system of my parents, who are amazing parents, they wanted me to survive and thrive and be independent. But because of their own upbringing and the history of trauma and persecution and oppression or
Exactly. I was
whatever,
about to say.
yeah, they, I think, passed on a set of values that were really connected to, like I was saying, survival mode. And the more that I tried to play into that value system, the more that I found myself really manipulating parts of myself to be something that I knew I wasn't. Like I was going to be a doctor at one point, and then eventually through different experiences, I finally was like, "Whoa, I can also be a healer. It just doesn't have to look like that."
Ah,
Um, or like the idea of intelligence growing up was really connected to books and reading and
certifications and
yeah,
degrees
exactly.
and yeah,
Exactly. And
that external validation.
I got those external validations and I played into that game, but really I started to see that my own intelligence happened far more in the human interaction space than it happened behind a book. So like I started to slowly dismantle the rules of the system for me, and everything became a rule that I could dismantle at some point. And I always have that sensitivity towards what is being put onto me versus what is my experience. Now, sometimes that
Of
doesn't,
course.
I went through a period where I was just a rebel to be a rebel and a contrarian to be a
Right.
contrarian,
Like
which,
everything is bad.
right, right.
Everything.
So I went too far in the other direction for a
I
period.
think everybody had that moment, of course.
Yeah. But then I came back to like a center, which was like, okay, let me engage with all of these things that are coming in my direction and feel into them. Are they alive? Do they have resonance? No. Why? That like maybe I need a little time to figure out why. Maybe I need to play into the space of maybe I need to try doing the normative thing for a second and take what works for me and leave behind what doesn't. And so it's more been like a trial and error thing, but it started really from the place of realizing that all of these different systems and rules and projections really didn't encapsulate who I fully was.
Oh, so that's it's so true. And thank you so much for kind of sharing all these nuggets of wisdoms that just came out of you and this interaction. So, kind of to finalize it, what does it mean for you to be and or live an effortless, abundant life? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think I'm redefining it right now. I think that I'm I'm wanting. Well, okay. It's gonna sound a little.
Follow what's alive.
Maybe it's a little woo, but
Listen, this is the place. I told
I think
you.
I want to be an instrument of love in this world, to allow for love to flow through me and to have that flow um, without um, friction, to let it just flow through me and to externalize it to others in the world around me, and to be like a conduit of love. And I I don't know fully how that is supposed to look like or what it will look like or how it even feels, but the more that I make contact with the with my heart, and the more that I live just with ease and grace and without the restrictions, like when I'm talking to you, I don't feel that I'm passing my words through a filter.
Exactly.
So I'm not trying, I'm just expressing. And what flows through me uh, when I'm in that place of authenticity, what gets transmitted is love.
I think you said it perfectly. When you allow yourself to be authentic and meet yourself where you are, how you feel, how you think, and give that validation and express it without the fear of the judgment or the fear of what they're going to think of me, and really owning that. That is the most freeing thing and the
Mm,
most important thing, and the most, I think, the biggest expression of love for yourself.
totally.
That was a nice glitch. You see that? Um, but what's coming for you actually
Mm,
specifically when you said, like, I don't know how to be a conduit, like 100% of love. I think what is coming up for me when you said that is when you love yourself. And it sounds so freaking cliche because we hear
hmm
it all the time. When you love yourself, da, 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 but I truly mean that. When you truly love yourself, as much as source loves you, it's like a parent that loves their child.
mm,
That's that unconditional love and seeing the perfection that you are, right? The perfection doesn't mean that you're 100% good. The perfection, it's about seeing the equal parts of the good and the bad, quote
mm.
unquote bad again, right?
Yeah.
It's all a matter, but seeing the things that you consider are bad in you or you need to work on as the perfection that you are
Mm.
and really owning that and putting yourself first, because that's true love. When you put yourself first,
Yeah.
that is the ultimate love. And then you become a conduit, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is
That
because
makes a
that's
lot of
the energy
sense
you're
to me.
emitting. And people feel that. And then they respond to that and they feel like, oh my God, like if he's putting himself first and he left this job and he's doing what he loves and he's not apologetic about it. He's not like, oh my God, that means I can do it too. And
Yeah.
that is the ripple effect of all the inspiration you put out in this world that you're not even aware of.
Totally.
And how cool is that?
Totally cool. And another word I think for love that you just reminded me of is unity, because when we are in a place where we've accepted and the parts of ourselves, all of them, the perfection as you call it, with the good, the bad, the ugly, however it is you want to define it,
Yeah.
the wholeness of it. We're in a place of unity with ourselves. And when we're in a place of unity with ourselves, we're also in a place of unity with those that are around us and with the and that unity where we just are one with each other is love.
Exactly. I love that so much. That's so true. And because that's what we see the racism and we see the like
Yeah,
people hating certain parts
sure.
of other it's like no, we're all one. But if you don't love yourself, of course
Yeah.
you're gonna find some kind of physical manifestation of it, and you're gonna think that this part of this group is bad, or it's even, and I'm gonna go further, like the people in the government or people that doing evil things. If you can see the perfection in them as well, and
Mm.
see that you are the one who's also perceiving them, there's something in you too that it's a match to that. It's like this is physics, right? You can't it's like matter like attracts like. There is some parts of us as well that have this still reflection. And when you see that, you see like, oh my God, we're all freaking one. And it's all this one big
Mm.
reflection mirror game that we're all playing in. And when you start to see that world from this lens and this understanding, you don't no longer like trying to be the judge or trying
Yeah, there's
to
no good or
be
bad or
exactly.
right.
There's none of that. You just
Mm.
oh, okay.
Right, right.
I get
That
it.
that is that is truly like a major key. It's just
Yeah.
this aspect of reflection. Like if whatever judgment you have, whatever perception you have that the world around you is ugly or disgusting or grotesque, or that that individual's cruel or mean or
Yeah.
evil, well, it's because that cruelty, that evilness, that grotesqueness, that narcissism, whatever it is, lives inside of you too.
Yeah. Maybe not in that specific area,
Yeah.
but you do it to yourself.
Uh-huh.
You do it to somebody else in some
Yeah.
shape or form, and that it's okay. It's just like we need to look at these parts in order to really free ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and not pretend
Mm.
that we're righteous and we're better than other people or that's this what I call the spiritual toxicity, right? To think that we're like, we are awakened, we are been through our healing journey, so we're better than you. You're a narcissist. You don't like no,
Right.
you're still experiencing this. There's still shit there for you too,
Of
honey.
course. Yeah.
So with that being said, love, please let us know where can we find your amazing work and your upcoming book and whatever else do you want to talk about that you are working towards?
Yeah. So I've got this book, Captain's Wanted, coming out on February 11th. I'd say all my travel content, my comedy content, um, all the expressions are all on my social medias, which right now are Schabelmania, my last name. With
I like the
it's
mania.
mania, yeah, exactly. So I think Instagram's a great place to follow the shorter form content. YouTube is a great place for the longer form content, and TikTok is TikTok. It's
It's
also
TikToking.
it's TikToking. But yeah, I would love to stay in touch, and if anything, resonates with the audience, I'm available. I want to make myself available, and if I can be a part of your journey and helpful in any way, please reach out. I want to be of service. So
That's
yeah.
amazing. Oh, that was so good. Thank you so, so much. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below if you're watching it on YouTube. And I know there's another feature on now on Spotify where you can actually comment after. So if you have any comments, any aha moments you took from this, follow-up questions, share it with a friend that you know that needs to hear this. And yeah, spread the word. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, love, for being here. We love, love, love having you.
Oh, thank you.
Um, and yeah.
Thank you for having me.